What is Gamescom's on right now? Oh, this is the pre-show. This is the pre-show.
You were born to dust. To dust you return. So why do you fight death?
You had turned. And you gave up for what? 10,000 years I set the order. And I told you immortality.
Second. I go live on TikTok. Sure, I guess. Gamescom on ballot. They're showing games.
I used to believe no one would die. Then everything changed. And I got scared. Scared that no one would remember I was even here. I want to be remembered. Not for who I was, but for who I am.
What game is this? This a Neza game? Holy shit, it is.
Back, everyone.
What the fuck?
I'm a little upset at the moment.
Wow, that's a Neza game.
I was promised there would be no Bubsy in the pre-show this year, and yet there he was. How's this keep happening? But let's continue counting down to opening night live with more wall-to-wall trailers. So far, we've seen high-speed action. We've seen high-speed trains. We've seen Animo. So obviously at this point you're wondering.
Oh wait, I missed that. What is Animo?
This brand.
Oh, that's what this is.
Early access.
Oops, I missed it. See this? The fuck is this? This is Animo?
Something starts before we know. A little spark begins to glow. One look, one sign.
What on earth?
The world feels different next.
It's like Pokemon, yeah.
Let it rise. Feel the rhythm open wide.
Badges? You just watch the stream where you gift the sub and you get those badges. Well, these?
When the moment feels just right, we shift, we shine, we come alive.
Oh, that's the wrong one. This?
I need more time with me.
The game is Animo.
When the moment feels just right, we shift, we shine, we come alive. Side by side into the flow. Every color starts to glow.
When does this game drop? MMO Genshin once a lot. Pokemon should have been done MMO. They are slacking. Wait, what?
This world
Isn't that next month?
This is not.
That's next month. Wow, okay.
That.
Did I miss anything? Let me catch up.
Anyway, if you've been
I don't know what this fucking box game is. Is that a horror game?
so far, I was
Just the pre-show, if anyone's
immediately
confused.
find out.
The actual show starts in 15 minutes. If you're confused as to what the fuck I'm watching. What in earth is this game? We're gonna have a field day with that. Where's my food? I'm hungry. I need to go grocery shopping after this, so I'm probably gonna do 2 streams today. I'm probably gonna end this stream after we watch this, and then I'm gonna come back later. Cause I got a lot of work I gotta do as well. Is this a squirrel game where you just eat fucking nuts or some shit? What is he doing? Acornia. Funny name.
Bon
Bonaparte says he brings enlightenment to the places he conquers.
It's a funny ass name. A cornea?
Friends, comrades,
Fucking squirrel just going crazy on nuts.
empty.
William! By the saints, is that truly you? I'm worried, William. With those things looming.
Just show the DMZ.
But they're not human. Not anymore.
The flame, it magnifies what is strong and valuable, destroys or omits what is unnecessary.
Oh, you count bugs? I don't know why it does that.
What will this thing do to me?
That shit's sperm bugs.
Only mad monarchs turn their kingdoms to ashes.
What is this game? This game looks cool. Who is
I do not
she?
think you insane, William. But even if you were, madness may be the only sane response.
Valor's Mortis? Or Valor's Mortis? Or Valor Mortis, whatever it's called.
Tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night. What the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was thy brain? Did he smile his work to
What
see?
on earth?
Did he who made the lamb make thee?
Tank rat.
I looked it up because I was curious. All of that was from a poem called The Tiger by William Blake.
Fucking tank
published
rat.
back in 1794. Which is crazy because that's the first year they had a Gamescom. But back then it was just a bunch of silent trailers for Hopscotch and Knucklebones. Now, another brand new game announcement.
For years, these delightful stories have sparked inspiration for innovation. But the interpretations always fell short. Thankfully, I found a way to not only save them, but to make them even better. You'll have to fully immerse yourself within them.
Mickey too?
Be courageous
What the hell is that?
and cunning.
Does your puzzle have a
Thought they were
stupid
making Epic
name
Mickey
too?
2 for a second.
You'll be
Like, yeah.
introduced to friends
Was the first one even successful?
but you sure can't fight!
and foes.
You just won tickets to my show! Wolves in the den.
You'll need to become resourceful
I don't know what your strategy is.
and resilient.
I also don't care.
These stories will test you.
Does anyone
Once you've fully
played Epic Mickey?
experienced all
Because I
my
didn't play it.
interpretations, you'll be ready for me.
Oh, too good for me, are you? I'll have you know, I've been married hundreds of times to thousands of mimes.
Sometimes I like when a trailer
That's
just
what that
shows you
game's
its
name is.
final boss. They just said, hey, here's this evil long-haired nerd. You gotta stop this guy. Mission accepted. Hey, welcome to the Gamescom Opening Night Live pre-show, where I realize there's been a lot of debuts already to keep track of. You might be looking for some help, just to remember all these titles to add to your wish list later. Well, I can't help you. I'm sorry, you're on your own. All I have is more world premieres.
The hell am I looking at? There's a number of games confirmed. Oh nah, number of games confirmed to be here. Witcher's gonna be here, Jedi, Hogwarts, Legacy 2, Fallout, Resident Evil, Tomb Raider, Game of Thrones, FF7. There's a lot of games confirmed to be here today.
Those were some big horses. Just a reminder, you're watching the event before the event. Opening night live is just minutes away, but we're about to see a trailer for another new game that nobody knows about yet. You can't Google it right now, but you can Google it 2 minutes from now.
Well, some of
That's
our
the
rumors,
magic
but
of what we're doing here.
confirmed is like Anantha, Witcher, FF. Rumors is just like Hogwarts and Jedi and stuff. Those are rumors. What do you think about people who play modern Street Fighter 6? I don't really care. I think modern's kind of lame, but I mean, if that's what you want to play with, go for it. What the fuck is this? You play Fallen Order? No. Game looks sick. What is this? That looks pretty cool. Elda.
You know what's crazy about that trailer? The little dragon companion never talked. I don't know if I've ever seen a video game before where you have a little flying dragon friend who isn't wisecracking. That was refreshing.
Isn't what cracking?
And now we're going to take a first ever look at a game for 2-player co-op enthusiasts.
Grandpa,
Isn't
what was Mom
what
like?
cracking?
You never talk about her much.
Why is
She
cracking?
was complicated.
I've never seen someone use that word.
Delivery for your special day. Impossible. This was your mother's sigil.
What? How? Maybe we should see what's inside.
The fuck?
What?
You're a little kid! Can we start changing ages yet?
I suppose we should learn how it all works.
Want to change who you are? Just press a button.
Look at me! I'm a
This
kid
looks cool.
again!
What's all
A bunch
this
of
now?
ducks.
It's a treasure hunt! A birthday treasure hunt from Mom!
Or some kind of elder fraud. Where your mom was concerned, nothing was ever easy.
Is there any chance Mom could still be out there somewhere?
She's gone and she's never coming back.
Damn, your
Can't
mom
just
left
ignore
you?
this, Grandpa. She was my mom.
Let her mom leave.
Well, I'm not letting you go alone. Just no more of this age twisting, okay?
We beat
Capcom?
everybody in hell.
Oh, Tony Musha.
Musha. That means you, bud. A no-holds-barred fight to the death. You love the sound of that too, right?
Oh, is this game dropping soon?
Down in the bottom of hell.
Old head game? What do you mean old head game? Which is pretty new now. Oh shit.
Save this world.
I will entertain me.
The combat looks sick and the sound effects.
Damn. Body warrior.
As for you,
What if the quality's better on Twitch? Hold on.
hear about that gauntlet.
You've been working ever so hard.
Might actually be.
The time has come for the finale.
Wait, Twitch.
I can tear you apart as many times
Wait.
as I like.
Am I behind? The Twitch is ahead.
You need someone trying to help. You don't belong in this world.
I expanded demo. Yeah, I guess I'll watch on Twitch.
Onimusha just shadow dropped an while it's downloading. We're about to hit my favorite part of this show. We're about to check out a brand new trailer for the beautiful Mariachi Legends. And then immediately after that, I got to have an interview with the game's creative director. So first, let's see this.
What is this?
Así me gusta, Pablo.
Oh, the music sounds nice. It's 8-bit. Game looks sick.
Madre Katrina siempre consigue lo que quiere, tarde o temprano.
Damn. Who's cooking?
No me hagas esperar.
Mariachi Legends.
And now's the part of the show where we are blessed with a guest. Joining us now, the creative director and composer of Mariachi Legends, Miguel Hasson.
It's really nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
What is Mariachi
What, an
Legends?
interview? Wait, what
and
the-
where did this concept come from?
Mariachi Legends is a pixel art Metroidvania, and it started with the realization that Alucard's suit is like 90% of a mariachi suit already. And so we started thinking about that Mexican vampire sort of idea, and we infused it with Aztec culture and Mexican culture. And so one thing led to another, and we have Mariachi Legends.
Can you tell us one particular element of Mexican culture that you were excited to put into Mariachi Legends that you've never seen
the
before
pre-show?
in
Yes.
any other video game?
The
My
show
mom's
starts
from this
in
town called
3 minutes,
Mascota,
so if anyone needs to use the
Jalisco.
bathroom or something, go for it
And
now.
it's one of those towns that's in the category of magical town or pueblo mágico. This would be the first
Yo,
time
Flying Monkey, this
a
would
pueblo
probably too.
mágico is ever present in a video game ever. It's very Mexican and I feel proud of.
So how does this actually play?
We mix like fast combo action with RPG. So it's like a Ninja Gaiden Castlevania sort of mix. You know, these combos allow you to get extra buffs. There's also the element of hunting for ingredients and being able to cook Mexican traditional dishes. And so that allows you to enter some boss fights ridiculously overpowered.
So when can people finally play this game?
We're finally ready to announce that the game is coming next year in April 27th.
Thank you for coming to talk with all of us.
It's my pleasure.
No, I've got good news and bad news.
Is there one more announcement or
the
what?
bad news is we're all out of trailers for this pre-show, which means that the good news is that it's time for the top 10 reasons to be excited for Gamescom Opening Night Live 2026. Okay. Number 10, Gears of War E-Day. The E stands for emergence.
DMC, right?
But
What
it
about
might
DMC
as well
6?
stand for excited for Gamescom. Number 9 reason to be excited for Gamescom Opening Night Live 2026. Netflix couldn't lock down the exclusivity. Number 8, Ananta. That's the game that's like Vice City, but also anime, and also you have Spider-Man powers. It's never boring. Number 7, so far the increasing price of RAM has not impacted the cost of watching trailers. Number 6, we hid the word nooblet somewhere in Jeff Keighley's script and he hasn't found it yet. Number 5, a live performance of Guillotina from Eugenics. That's gonna be bonkers. Number 4, The Witcher 3, Songs of the Past. It's never too late for DLC. Number 3, Final Fantasy VII Revelation. You know, I
That's
noticed
confirmed.
they haven't shown a single second of Aerith gameplay yet. I think they're probably saving it for tonight. Number 2, as we helplessly trundle
This
towards
guy,
an
bro.
all-digital future, manufactured traditions such as these have somehow
Like,
become
what?
a rare
Why would you
remaining
say
live
that?
space to share mutual enthusiasm for games. That one's not really a joke. Sometimes I just get sad about stuff. And the number 1 reason to be excited for Gamescom Opening Night Live
Jeez,
is...
bro. Hey,
the
Joe,
pre-show
thanks for
is
the
over.
follow.
Oh, okay. No more waiting. No more
All right,
anticipating.
we're starting.
From this point forward, we'll be live in Cologne, Germany. Thanks for watching.
Germany?
Enjoy the
Damn.
show.
All right, let's get started.
Creator of the Game Awards, Jeff Keighley.
Jeff Keighley. Where's my DMC6, bro? Where's my DMC6? Where?
Guten Abend! Welcome to Gamescom! Yes! Are you guys ready for 2 hours of video game news
It's
and updates?
2 hours long? Oh, shit.
Well, you've come to the right place.
I didn't realize this was 2 hours long. Okay, we'll be for a while.
Live in Cologne, Germany at Colmesse, and the crowd this year,
This
you
is
guys
2 hours
are
long?
honestly the loudest I've ever heard.
Bro,
you. The
give me my
energy
fucking
height is on
DMC.
another level. You guys are prepped and ready, and we got a lot of great stuff for you today. It feels great to be back, surrounded by over 5,000 fans at the biggest consumer video game event in the world. This week, more than 350,000 people are expected here at Gamescom, and tens of millions of more will watch live online around the world. We love you too. Well, you'll see if you love me by the end of the show, but yes, hopefully you will love me. When we started Opening Night Live in 2019, we didn't know what to expect. From the very beginning, you guys welcomed us. And year after year, this community has made us feel home here in Germany. This is, believe it or not, our 8th ONL, and we're so excited to bring you an amazing 2 hours of video games. Now, last year's ONL will always hold a very special place in my heart because it was actually the final show of mine that my dad was able to watch. Immediately after the show, I actually had to cancel all my meetings here at Gamescom and flew back to New York to be with my dad during his final days. And sadly, as you may know, he passed away just a few days after Gamescom last year. But from his hospital bed, he did watch last year's show, and he saw all of you, and he knew how much this stage and this community meant to me. So standing here with you tonight means more than I can really express. I know you'll be proud that we are back together, once again celebrating the creativity, passion, and people who make games the biggest form of entertainment in the world. So thank you for this moment, everybody.
W Games.
Tonight, I carry my dad's memory with me onto this stage. I am so grateful for all of you for welcoming me back, and Shocks as well, who will be out here in just a minute. It is no secret that video games and the video game industry is changing and evolving. On one level, that's exciting, but on another, it's kind of scary.
It is kind of scary.
Like there isn't a week we don't see headlines about layoffs or studio closures. And on top of that, the larger electronic storage and memory crisis.
All this shit with Twix scale this week. Oh my god. I still can't believe that shit, bro.
But in spite of all that, developers around the world are pushing forward to build
that shit
new
is
games.
so silly.
Big teams, small indie teams, and teams all around the world. Tonight, you're going to see projects on stage from teams in places like France, Sweden, the UK, Italy, Canada, China, Japan, Korea, and more. So what can you expect on these screens behind me? Well, how about brand new information?
There's a lot of gacha games here.
Final Fantasy VII Revelation.
Wow.
Introduced by game director
We're starting with Final
Hamaguchi.
Fantasy? Oh,
Metro
fuck.
2039 from 4A Games.
Oh, I'm about to say.
Rayman Legends Retold.
Rayman?
The Xbox console exclusive Gears of War E-Day. Tides of Annihilation. The first
There's a lot of
ever
gacha
in-game
games here.
footage of Warlock Dungeons and Dragons from
By the
Wizards
way.
of the Coast. And yes, later in the show, we'll have the world premiere first details and in-game
GTA 6
footage
or
of
what?
a brand new expansion to 2015's Game of the Year winner, The Witcher 3. It's called Songs of the Past. And we also have a little fun in store for you as well, including the first ever musical performance of the music from Eugenics, the hit indie game about breeding
That's a
cats
cat,
earlier
right?
this year. So we got a lot of fun ahead, but let's start things off with a new game announcement no one is expecting tonight. From one of the world's most successful developers comes something completely different than its past titles.
Completely different.
Please enjoy.
Fuck.
Whence came the first entanglement?
What the fuck?
None living may now tell.
Sounds like Vincent.
In its way,
What the fuck is this?
waters spread, weaving calamity.
Sounds like Vincent's voice actor.
Upon the silken paths, malice took root. 10 suns rose on high.
God,
and so, as spoken of old,
the fuck is this?
rivers came forth, yet spoke not
Hoyo!
the cause of their coming.
Huh?
The waters have ebbed.
What? They're making an actual game, not a gacha?
Still,
what?
The wounds of old remain.
A non-gacha Hoyoverse game? They finally got enough money? Holy shit, this is crazy. They finally got enough money?
Held against the
This is gacha?
Yet in chops.
How they gonna make gacha out of this? What the fuck am I looking at?
Blot out the Pyro Hill once more.
He said it's something completely different than what they've done before.
And you'd still not quench
So I don't think it's gacha.
millennium of hatred.
This is a Souls like, what the fuck? Or what the fuck is this?
How can a few dying embers ignite the flames of rebellion?
Where are clothes at?
We are not of this land. Here it is not oaths, but lies.
Monster Hunter type again?
Keep things whole.
I hope it don't play like Monster Hunter. Monster Hunter clunky as shit. Well, like the controls and menus and shit. That's what I mean.
At last, ye did unveil the divine power ye had stolen.
They revived their teammates.
God's wrath.
Oh shit, she could transform into fucking beast.
Sunder the dread Nudus.
Damn, they jumping him. I feel bad for the animal. What the fuck? They beating the shit out of these animals. What? This is not fair.
Some other end.
This shit is not fair. What? They was beating the fuck out of them animals.
Pretty impressive. That was the announcement of Notice Fall from Hoyoverse, an original co-op action game in which players take on the role of a weaver and step into a world where divine authority has crumbled and order has collapsed. Players must stand as one to defeat mighty mythic beings using close coordination and sharp tactics.
That's cool.
Very, very cool, and we're happy to kick off the show with that one.
Wow,
All right, we have a lot more to come.
Yo,
Now,
I felt bad for them animals. Them animals was getting baked.
Known for her work
That
on
shit
League
was
of
not
Legends and
fair.
Counter-Strike, and the winner of Best Esports Host at the Game Awards. Tonight, though,
That
she's
shit
our
was
co-host
not
for
fair.
ONL for the third year in a row, and you know what? We couldn't imagine doing this show without her. Gamescom, will you please join me in giving a huge welcome to Shocks?
Wow, thank you so much, Jeff. It is such an honor to be back here at Gamescom in my favorite city, I gotta say it, Cologne, and seeing all the fans around the world. Now, I cannot wait to see everyone's reactions to what we have in store tonight. And right now, I am very happy to share with you the global announcement of a brand new title in a very well-known franchise developed by Ubisoft Paris.
Ubisoft.
This is Rainbow Six Tactics.
Jesus. I'm sorry. That was rude.
This is it. These tangos are in for a surprise. Take your positions, team. Breaching!
6 on station. Let's show Cares that Rainbow's back.
Go, go, go!
The people behind this, I have seen them before, and they must be planning something bigger.
Send me everything you dig up on the agency bombings. There's no time to waste.
We've contacted Rainbow's former operators.
You just have to choose which ones.
Sigh. Yo, if y'all watching on YouTube, make sure I like up the stream. I really appreciate it. Like up the stream, yes sir. Yeah, like up the stream. I'd really appreciate it.
We've got active hostiles all around, team. Move fast and stick to cover.
I'm seeing increased activity across all channels.
Want us to put out more fires? We'll put out more fires.
I want to see some more Anantha, so I can't wait to see some of that. Because they're showing Anantha today. The GTA anime game. One swing.
That was Rainbow Six Tactics, a new turn-based tactical single-player game set in the Rainbow Six universe. Now, in Tactics, you'll lead a squad of operators on high-stakes missions around the world, combining careful planning, coordinated breaches, and tactical decision-making in every operation. Choose from a roster of 15 unique operators, each equipped with specialized
That's more
gadgets,
characters in some fighting games get a
and
launch.
progression
Yeah.
paths that create new possibilities every time you deploy. Rainbow Six Tactics launches in 2027.
Okay.
Okay, almost 20 years ago, Gears of War helped define a generation of Xbox. Tonight, we are returning to Emergence Day, the day that changed everything. Here at Opening Night Live, we have the world premiere of the campaign trailer for Gears of War E-Day,
Oh, they never showed
including
this?
the first look at the Locust leader behind the invasion. From the Coalition, here's Gears of War E-Day, an Xbox console exclusive, launching this October.
I know Dado's been really hyped for this game. Graphics look good.
What the fuck are you?
What the fuck are you? What is that? No, but oh, that is
Scorch the city.
Scorch the city.
Bleed the surface. Bleed the ground walkers.
The fuck did he pour on him?
Good to see a few more gears made it through the night.
Wait, but actually though, what did he
Belong to me now.
pour on him?
Designation, Bravo Squad. No one knows what these
Acid
things are
Mountain
or where they're
fucking Dew is crazy.
This is more than an invasion. It's a fucking war.
He poured Mountain Dew on him.
But whatever this is, it's happening all over the city.
Actual monsters are coming out of the ground and ripping my people apart.
And those are my gears out there holding the line. Fall back now!
How do we hold a line against an enemy that can tunnel under?
Oh, shit! We're gears. We fight.
We still have our people. If we can save them, we save Kelowna.
Loss prepares us for what's ahead.
People we love die.
This was all nice.
They keep fighting.
Give him hell, Phoenix. That's the plan. Come and get some, you goddamn scrubs!
Jesus Christ. What are y'all even fighting? And aliens and shit.
Fall. We all do.
Their armor looks so heavy.
Or we die together, yeah? To the end.
Soundtrack is nice too.
Gears of War, October
Anantha
6th
already.
this year. All right. Next, it's time for Anada, an epic free-to-play open-world RPG game from NetEase coming to PlayStation 5, PC, and
by
mobile
NetEase.
platforms. 3 years ago, it was revealed here at Gamescom. With 2 massive cities, you build your profile and social following as a member of the ACD team. Tonight, we've got your first look at the city of Shangzhou and the types of combat vehicles
Those
and
multiple
minigames
cities.
you can expect. And yes, news on the release date as well.
I think the release is confirmed for January.
Any last wishes?
The fuck?
Still have a mortgage. Haven't tracked down my old man yet. Still gotta buy a ticket home. I still got all these memes I haven't sent out yet.
Whoa!
Bro,
it's
what?
Ananta! Or it was. Let's go! We're about to make our mark at the ACD.
ACD?
Did they really just go belly up?
I say you go viral first, then worry about rebuilding the ACD. Get big enough, and the old workers are sure to come back.
What's next?
Playing this over GTA 6?
Master.
What the?
What, Master?
Master.
Whoa.
You're so awesome.
Heat Master?
What?
Master.
The what master?
Who the hell came up with that name?
Oh, what? The Yeet master?
You're nothing more than a bad seed who slipped out of a nowhere town.
Enjoy the party, my friend.
This is not yours to take.
Oh, wow.
outsider. What's going on? What?
Damn. My God. A lot of references in this.
Just you wait. Where am I?
Where do you think?
Wait, I'm back home.
Flying
Won't be traffic
cars?
at this hour, will there?
This is Chong Shao.
Take me with you to sniff out some martial arts masters. And
Oh my God, how many
legendary
fits
weapons.
are there?
You've been reading too many fantasy novels.
A fast ass game or
What you
2
seek
cities?
is inside.
Tourist spy?
Only those who pass our trials may witness the Lingjing within. Huh? Can you take it?
You bet. I've dragged entire subway.
Okay then.
Damn. Holy shit. That was like fucking 64 trigrams on your back. January 15th release date.
This is the most expensive view. Wait. Huh? Why is everyone running off? Am I really that annoying?
The fuck? That's pretty cool. Look at my food.
Awesome. There you have it. Ananta comes out on January 15th, 2027. Now, we have so much more Gamescom Opening Night Live coming your way, including a new look at Final Fantasy VII Revelation. But yeah, I know you're waiting for it. But for now, here is a new look at Silent Hill Townfall. Yeah, coming in just a month's time from Konami, Annapurna, and Screenburn in the UK. Let's go.
Hey, Simon. Listen, I need you to come back to the town and put some things to rest.
What I just saw in that footage, you said we could put things right. That this town would listen to me.
But it's the right thing to do here, not just for them, but for the whole town.
Then you know what you have to do. But be careful. They're all so angry.
His death is your burden.
Break the silence.
I have to leave this island.
Don't you understand?
I should have known! You betrayed me!
All I ever needed is
Now I understand. The price we paid. It's more than I ever imagined.
I can't do this anymore.
save the gale. Well, my name is gone, but the waves will drive me on. My luck runs strong, where the wild winds bear me on. To choose the gamble of the gale, stumble through the mess of fun. You gotta sail along, yeah, prepare to win. To choose the gamble of the gale.
Our strength failed us. You failed us.
If only I was stronger. If only I...
You've surmounted countless trials to reach this summit.
This time, you will surely break the cycle.
You'll struggle, but you'll turn back. Face your foe, because that's the cliff I know.
If I do their dirty work for them, I'd better get what I'm owed.
I'm back.
What the hell is this?
This is Black Desert?
Even if the end
Or
is
no,
written,
this is Crimson Desert, isn't it?
I will walk the full length of this path.
Crimson? Figured. Like, I was about to say Black Desert for a second, but then it's gonna look a little off.
That was Crimson Desert, released nearly 6 months ago, and the
Something looked a
developers
little
of Pearl
off.
Abyss just keep adding more and more content, including new cutscenes and story moments too.
I ain't seen
All right, next let's
melanin.
step into the world of Tides of Annihilation, the upcoming fantasy action-adventure game by
seen
Chinese
melanin.
studio Eclipse Glow Games. Set in modern-day London and mythical Avalon, you play Gwendolyn, the lone survival of an otherworldly invasion who can summon spectral forms of the Knights of the Round Table.
Silent
Tonight
Hill?
we've got a
I
brand
missed
new
it.
trailer which reveals the new
Was it a good
voice of
trailer?
Gwendolyn, Angela Sant Albano, who recently played Grace Ashcroft in Resident Evil Requiem.
Oh, cool. Wait, so where's my DMC?
You have decided.
Capcom not here, they are here. They were literally here earlier. They just showed
Is there a way to fix this?
fuck, I messed my where's my
The
oh,
fog
no.
has
They showed
devoured your home,
what was that shit
and
called?
now it is tearing Avalon apart.
What's up?
Arthur was the only
Oh,
one
so we just
who
don't
could
we just ignore
control
Onimusha. Okay, my bad.
until you.
Until me.
I know not why you possess his powers, but if you wish to reclaim London, you must harness the fog. Use it to command your spectral knights.
Guinevere. Teach me.
Lancelot. Oh shit. Frame rate look rough. Turn-based slot. This is even a turn-based game. What? This is even turn-based.
That looks absolutely beautiful.
Nah, you can't
And
just
if
flip
you're
them and say I'm
interested in
trolling.
wish listing and learning more
You meant that
about
shit.
any and all of the games featured at ONL, make sure to check out the Gamescom Steam page. And if you're anything like me, I'm sure you have tons on your wish list and in your cart. a few
Oh, it's
more
already being
characters,
turn-based.
right? The Steam page is available now and being updated throughout the show as the titles are announced. And
Cool.
now to introduce our next game trailer from Turin, Italy, founder and creative director of Unrelated Games, Alessandro Durando.
Thanks, Chucks, and ciao Gamescom. There is a question at the heart of Love Song. What do we leave behind and for whom? Well, you can be sure anyone will ever find it. I didn't have an answer when I started, and I still don't have one. And I genuinely never expect to be here on this stage. So thank you, Jeff and Gamescom, for this incredible opportunity. Just being here already means more than I can put into words. Love Song will take you on a journey through the forgotten echoes of past humanities, where sound is the only language left. You will uncover traces of memory left in stone and sound, building a bridge between what was and what
What
may
does the
still
shirt
come.
say?
Here is Love Song.
I don't fucking know. I don't fucking know. What the fuck? What am I looking at? What in the hell?
What a beautiful and artistic game made right here in Europe. Thank you, Alessandro, for joining us. One of my favorite moments from last year's TGAs was the announcement of Mega Man's long-awaited return with Mega Man Dual Override from Capcom.
Ooh.
Tonight, we've got an exclusive glimpse of new gameplay, along with the introduction of a new character who plans to foil Mega Man's plan to save the world.
Mega Man.
Take a look.
That Goku? Would Mega Man beat Goku? Let's go, Mega Man. What's this? Oh, it's like a little dash. Who the hell are you? Twinkle girl? What the hell? Damn. She nuked the shit out of her. He nuked the shit out of her. Why you do her like that? Oh, what the fuck? That came out of nowhere.
Little something extra. All right, now let's talk about
The
another
pragmatic, that's
legendary
funny.
gaming hero, one without limbs, Rayman, who's celebrating his 30th
Rayman.
anniversary this year. Rayman Legends Retold builds on the charm of the original 2013 game, now brought to life with stunning 3D visuals, new story content, and an all-new sixth realm to explore, plus fully voiced cinematics. Players join Rayman and friends on a new adventure to restore peace to the Glade of Realms. There are 4 all-new musical stages, like MC Hammer's You Can't Touch This, and
What?
tonight we have your first look and listen to another musical stage.
Why the fuck they got MCM in a Rayman game? What the fuck? What the fuck is happening? What on earth, bro? I've seen some crazy shit, but this is trippy.
October 1st, Rayman will be at the Ubisoft booth this week here at Gamescom. And that's what makes this show so great, is that many of tonight's games will be playable to fans who are joining us live in person here in Germany all weekend long.
I've seen some crazy
Still
shit,
to come at
bro.
ONL, the worldwide
Like fucking
reveal
Donkey
of The
Kong
Witcher
Bonanza.
3's new
That game
expansion,
was fucking
Final
crazy.
Fantasy VII Revelation, and a performance of the music of Mugenics for the first time anywhere. It's time for our next announcement. The developers gave us a phrase to introduce this new IP,
What?
but none of the words apparently can be said on stage. So I guess let's just watch a trailer.
None of the words can be said on stage. Excuse me? What is this? That was fucked up. What is H1Z1? Lady? Fucking Trish? It's a battle royale. Oh, wow. No comment. It's PUBG. Wow, it's a new PUBG. Wow.
Explore breathtaking,
That's gonna be pretty big.
worlds.
A new PUBG?
Make a friend.
What the fuck am I watching? They have a zombies mode?
And
Or is this a
build
different
your
game?
dream home together.
What type of fucking what?
You've changed, but that's okay. Once human, jump
That
in
came out of
today.
nowhere? Oh, is this Control? This trailer is loud as fuck. Fast, fluid, and incredibly fun. Does look fun, I can't lie. Most of the games that are showing are dropping this year. Everybody's trying to get their game out before holiday season.
There's a grain of truth to old legends.
Your eyes.
Oh, it's the vampire game.
Tall, fangs long as snakes.
A winged beast. Can it be a demon from the depths of hell itself?
Oh God. No, no, please, no.
I gave you a blessing. I hope you enjoy my gift.
None of us has any love for the Valkyrie.
They
But
feasting.
this one, he's different. The sun didn't take him.
Night after night. Day after day.
Dust Bloods?
I will strike him down.
Oh!
Your
I saw a little bit of it.
Sends a ripple.
From the playtest? I did not look at enough
Your
of it though.
every word echoes far. Your every step.
No one was allowed to stream it, of course.
Crossroads.
From the media ban.
All that remains is for you to choose.
Help me, please!
So sorry.
No, no.
Oh wow.
Very well then. Let's begin.
Welcome back, everybody, to Gamescom opening night live. Now, I'm a huge Game of Thrones fan, so I'm very happy to share this world premiere of this next game with you.
Oh shit, it's real.
The gameplay of the forthcoming strategy game, Game of Thrones: War for Westeros, from Australia's Playside
Yo, Kyle, thanks for the
Studios.
40. Appreciate that. Thank you.
The Iron Throne stands empty.
Come on, man. Honest Ray.
What on earth, bro?
Try to defend yourself.
What on earth? I mean, it looks like it could be fun, but like, my judgment is clouded since I've been watching Game of Thrones.
The fate of Westeros
Stand with me.
is yours to decide.
Oh shit, the Night King.
Game of Thrones. War for Westeros.
Yeah.
Wow.
How awesome did that dragon look? You know, I can't wait for this one. So with that now, it is time for a new game announcement from Airship Syndicate, makers of Darksiders Genesis. This is a new self-funded and published indie title where you escape from a failing orbital prison in this gritty sci-fi isometric action thriller. This is Dust Origins.
Whoa. Oh, this looks cool. Airship Syndicate. In this prison, everything wants to kill you. Yeah, then they really do want to kill you. What the fuck? There's a lot of indie games. It's like a mobile game. I feel like you only say that because it's top down. Dust Origins.
A new age begins, but the old shadows.
What?
Searching for a pulse.
What the fuck? Is it a presentation? I mean, not presentation.
Initializing reality.
What the fuck?
Loading a 233,000 square meter
Portal?
grid. Activating 1,600 exhibitors. Unlocking more than
I don't think that's the
1,000
musical
portals.
performance. It's too
Global
early
data
now.
streams active. Challenging community energy worldwide. Breaking the barrier between screen and reality. Heartbeat restored. Synchronization complete. You are no longer playing. You are logged in.
What? What does that even mean?
Welcome to the heart of gaming.
You're no longer playing, you're logged
to
in.
Gamescom.
Don't you have to log in before playing?
Welcome indeed. That's right. Gamescom has officially started now. Let's go.
What?
And now we turn to Exodus, a cinematic single-player action RPG
What?
from Wizards of the Coast, set in a new far-future sci-fi universe.
What
In
does
Exodus,
that
we
even
rise from
mean? What do you
salvagers
mean?
and
Welcome
travelers,
to
discover
Gamescom.
new
It just
worlds
started.
ravaged by the effects of time, and search for the key to humanity's survival across the most dangerous reaches of space. Along
What type
the
of
way,
bit
you
was
assemble
that?
a crew of sharp-edged specialists. Soldiers, smugglers, mercs, scholars, and awakened animals whose skills and chemistry shape
I
every
guess.
fight and decision. Tonight, it's time to get a deeper look at Salt, an awakened octopus and mercenary who joins your team. Get a glimpse into who she is, where she comes from, and why she's along for the adventure.
Let's protect our defense!
The fuck is that? Is that an octopus?
Salt?
Is that an octopus?
Figured we could talk, since you're part of the team now.
Why?
Want to understand how you see things. How you operate.
The fuck?
I hunt. You pay. This is agreed.
Well, that answers
What?
that. But hey, we're getting to know each other.
Why is the octopus giving demands?
You local to Persepolis? Or you from somewhere else?
Somewhere else.
Salt, you have a most impressive reputation. We were surprised to hear that you accepted a permanent position with the human team.
You fear me, envy, hate.
I'm responsible for this world.
What?
You
There's
put it in
dialogue
danger for your own selfish
with an
reasons.
octopus?
I will join, but I will be paid after, even if Leiden is in danger.
What the fuck does an octopus want to get
Been away
paid
for
in?
a long time.
You want more water in your fucking tank?
From your planet?
What?
From your people?
I miss ocean, safety, home.
Home?
Run, human!
What the hell? It's kind of racist. What?
Salt! No!
What? 3 years for Salt. Salt the octopus. 7 years back home.
Time is our great enemy. But we must always have hope.
Those eggs? This octopus give me fucking demands.
There we have it, the long-awaited release date for Exodus. It is coming in April, as you saw, of 2027. Now to give us an exclusive extended first look at the gameplay for the upcoming
hilarious,
Warlock
bro.
Dungeons & Dragons from Wizards of the Coast and Invoke in Montreal, Canada. Please welcome the TGA award-winning star of Resident Evil Village, the incredible Maggie Robertson.
you, Jeff, and good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here. Yeah. All right. Every warlock's journey begins with a pact. For Katri, a seasoned warrior on a personal quest, that pact is made with Tasha, an ancient witch queen and the patron I have the pleasure of playing.
She's Lady in Resident Evil Village,
Tasha
right?
grants her access to forbidden magic, but power always comes at a cost. Tonight, we're revealing gameplay for the first time, showing how Katri wields magic as she explores the world of Darkon. This is Warlock. Let's take a look.
That's Lady D.
Have your deepest desires come true? Not the one that matters. Can you not do more? More? You still think this is your quest? I have seen your heart's desire. Dark and defiant. And mine.
Yeah, look down on me. What?
You and I through the Warlock's eye. Raw magic.
Raw magic?
Serves us both. Open your eye and see what I see, Warlock. Find raw magic.
Whoa.
What exactly is your interest here? Or is it your patron's interest that guides us?
My curiosity is my own.
The fuck?
Do you believe in letting buried things lie?
In my experience, buried things do not lie for long.
What'd that do?
We are getting closer.
Yes. Closer to what?
Yo, y'all are gooned out. What the fuck is that?
I see it.
Gameplay kind of looks like Hogwarts Legacy. That would let me be sped up. That's so slow.
Warlock? Absolutely not. Merely digging deeper.
Yeah, the gameplay looks like Hogwarts Legacy. Twitch is gooned out? No. The person said make them kiss. In YouTube chat, messages didn't show. Y'all gooned out too. It's not just y'all. I guess that's just Twitch. Not PC specs. Yeah, you gotta come to Twitch and say exclamation point. Specs.
Raw magic. A means to an end.
Fuck. Ew. What the fuck is she cooking? Would y'all let her cook for you? Actually, no, I know the answer to that. The fuck?
Call for rain. Something tells me we're not fleeing from this one.
Not an option, Skip. What I need is here.
So stiff. Be right back. I'm not impressed.
thought the death kiss was trouble.
That was absolutely amazing. Wow. And now it is time for the announcement of a brand new game inspired by 1001 Arabian Nights, with flying carpets, colossal bosses, and more. It comes from the new NBC Game Studio, which is debuting this game on the Gamescom show floor. Here's 1001 Threads of Mizan.
Come close, and I will tell you a tale of
What
two
the fuck am I looking
worlds
at now?
at war.
Are they cursing me?
Set
Again?
ablaze by a smokeless flame, and fueled by those called to fight.
Oh, she did. Oh, it's like a carpet surfboard thingy.
Whispers on the desert wind come from those who are unseen. The Jinn.
The fuck?
Once the children of Earth and the Jinn flourished, united, until betrayal split their worlds
Whoa.
Now the veil is thinning.
The
Two
fuck?
worlds collide as they wage a war of vengeance.
She was shooting at literally nothing.
Yet
That did
many
damage.
stories remain
The hamster.
untold. To avoid destruction, we have but one hope. So listen, heed my words. This story begins
And the visuals
with
look good.
you.
Threads of Mizan. Cool. The fuck are you
I'll
cooking?
leave it to you to make the dead speak.
Oh, Silver Palace, right?
Nothing and no one will keep me from the truth. Not even the purists.
What the fuck? Muscle spasms? You just put her knee or hips around. Never mind. Why is she always stepping on people?
Any leads?
It's just as you surmised. The final
fuck?
clue is in that cursed place. If greed comes at a cost, what price would you pay to bring back someone you love?
Oh. Capcom. Son. It's not the right Capcom game. How many milestones there? God.
All right, welcome back to ONL, and next we're turning to the legendary Metro series and a very special developer, 4A Games, based in Ukraine. Game developers have to build games in all sorts of conditions, but for 4A, the development of 2039 has truly been a challenge to build art in the midst of a real war. To tell us more about their incredible story and journey of perseverance to create Metro 2039, please join me in welcoming to the ONL stage John Block and Pavel Umer from 4A Games.
Oh, we got the hat. No, the helmet.
Hello, Gamescom. Wow, so many cool announcements already, and we are really proud to be a part of it. Thank you so much.
I'm John Block, executive producer for Metro 2039.
And I'm Pavel Ulmer, co-creative director and audio lead.
Wasn't this the game with the girl
Tonight,
and that boy?
we're revealing our brand new gameplay trailer for Metro 2039, the
This game
next
looks sick.
chapter set in the Metro universe we have been exploring for nearly 2 decades. Metro has always been a story about preventing
they work on
war,
this for almost 2
but now
decades,
that
yeah.
war is at our doorstep, we have built a story about its consequences and what it takes to survive. The cost of silence, the horror of tyranny, and the price of freedom.
The price of freedom
as
is
always,
steep.
There's monsters, tunnels, devastated ruins.
Yo, can
But
I-
Metro
can
to
we-
us, It's about people, what they protect.
Almost lost
what
my
they
composure.
sacrifice,
Never mind.
And what remains of them when the world takes almost everything away.
Creating a game this dark requires a lot of passion, discipline, and a development team that has
my
had to become
composure.
accustomed to working without peace or regularity.
Nah, this game is sick though.
There's enormous care for this universe and the people who believe
But
in
what
it.
I want to see
A key part of this
is getting
our own
gate-capped.
in-house 4A engine built to fully realize the oppressive world you're about to step into.
We built this game for those who have traveled through Metro before, and for those who are about to enter it for the first time. There's a lot.
Rivals
to
is
explore.
here.
Your
I don't know if they're gonna
support and
show
love for
something,
this
though.
world has stayed with us through every
Rivals
stage
is
of
confirmed here,
development,
though.
which was pretty rough, trust me.
There's
Cannot
creators
wait
that they've
to
flown
share
out
more
to
tonight.
go to.
And if you're lucky enough to be here at Gamescom, you can go hands-on.
I know
with Metro
Boger's there.
2039
They got
at our booth
Ashlyn, Boger,
and take a
Cringe,
closer
Jimbo,
look on a
KG,
fully
Meow,
wearable replica
Necros,
Spartan helmet
Rose,
that
Legs,
will be included
Team
in our
Captain,
collector's edition.
Sue
Thank
Bunny,
you.
and Andrew. There's people there. I just don't know if they're gonna show anything though.
Metro 2039 is not simply a return
The
to
fuck
Metro.
is that?
It is a darker, more ambitious, and deeply
Who the
personal
fuck is
journey.
that?
One that will challenge what you know about yourself
Fuck is
and what you're
this?
prepared to become in order to survive.
There's some Gore the
So,
God Killer shit.
The tunnels are waiting. The surface is calling. And tonight, we're ready to show you a bit what comes next. Welcome to Metro
cosplayers here?
2039. Slava Ukraini!
Cool.
What brought you
That's
here?
flats in the shadows.
I'm
What?
looking for someone. I need information. Then you've come to the wrong place. The Nova Reich spread across the station like a damn plague. So this is Hunter's bright future. Monsters.
the radiation. That's all that's left up there.
The fuck?
This. Humans did this.
Humans.
This is Hunter, the leader of the Novo Reich. The enemy must be destroyed. The Spartans were wolves in helmets. But I'm something worse. The enemy must be
His captain started stabbing his ass.
The enemy must be destroyed. What the fuck? I'm looking for someone. Where is she?
Metro 2039 looks great. Hats off to the team at 4A Games. Okay, now for something completely different. He's performed at the Game Awards and was on stage with us at Summer Game Fest, but now it's time for this person's first appearance on ONL.
Hey! Stop!
Tired of sneaking around just to feel good?
What the fuck?
Tired of this damn lighter? Of this rain?
Wait,
of
what?
This life?
This is a fucking Snoop Dogg game? It is. It's Snoop Dogg's game. Of course, he got fucking weed in it.
Or high.
Okay, cut! Thank
And
you,
Frey has a
Cyrus.
game
Perfect,
studio.
Well done.
That is Dr. Cyrus Kane, the big dog, as it were. An entrepreneur and eccentric.
Oh my god, I forgot.
Business ventures.
Don't they have a Wiz Khalifa thing too as well? They have a Hitman thing with Wiz Khalifa, now they have one with Snoop Dogg. They just made some random ass shit. This dude Snoop Dogg's whole personality just smoking weed. Just all he do is dance and smoke weed. All this dude do is dance and smoke weed, bro.
These internet ass DJs.
Internet ass DJs.
The Dog Father now
All he
coming
know how to
to
do is
Hitman.
crip walk.
Next up,
smoke
the
weed.
sky is no longer the limit from NC. This is Ion 2, the sequel to Ion, a new PC MMO built around aerial combat
Snoop
on a
Dogg is
massive
hilarious for
scale.
that.
It launches October 5th this year.
What's this? Oh, that was running in like 20 FPS. Well, 30. That was not 60. This trailer is 30 FPS actually. What the fuck? It looks good. The frame rate is rough. Oh, it's Ion 2. Some of the textures and visuals are off too. You can tell it's not finished.
You have no idea how beautiful America was. I believed in her promise. Dreamt
What in the hell?
Watched her fall. Out on the old roads, I saw her shatter
Mad
into
Max?
warring tribes. Survivors like your people. I know your kind. You think you'll survive and adapt. Reclaim the land. Rediscover the lost technology.
Any games gonna check out from the showcase so far?
Reunite her people through
I mean, I might play that
through
Silent
faith.
Hill game.
But when words
that one Pokemon looking game in the pre-show.
Might becomes the law.
And there's a few others, but what I'm excited for is Final Fantasy. It's not here yet. I mean, they didn't show it yet.
Ancient powers divide this land, and their might is far beyond the likes of you. So, will you kneel as my servant?
Damn, bend the knee.
Help me restore America, or burn as my foe.
Bend the knee.
At the end of all things, only one dream survives.
Another Hoyoverse game? Holy shit, they have so much fucking game. A cozy game. Yeah, Hoyoverse got too much money. Holy shit. I don't think they're reusing assets from Genshin. It's just the same engine. They're not reusing assets. It's just the same engine. This is like definitely one of the engines they use for their mini games and stuff. But a 3D model engine is the same. But like, I'm about like this art style you've seen in their mini games.
That was Petit Planet, a cozy galactic life simulation game from Hoyoverse. Here, life unfolds at your own pace. Farm the land, cast a line, comb the shores, or whip up a home-cooked meal. Enjoy
game.
slow, fulfilling
Fun,
days on your
game.
planet, side by side with your beloved fuzzy neighbors. Shucks, you gotta have the fuzzy neighbors, right?
Fuzzy neighbors.
Players can pre-register now on the game's official website. Plus, the final beta test will be coming soon.
Awesome.
Yes.
But now, we are very excited to have a special musical performance at ONL. Earlier this year, Edmund McMillan and Tyler Glale's cat breed simulation game, Mutagenics, got rave reviews for its gameplay and dark comedy style, and yes, its music. Yes. And tonight, we've got the first ever live performance. Please welcome Matthias Bossi, Carla Kilstead, and Jeff Perlman from Ridiculon performing Guillotina. Yes.
Meine Damen und Herren, während dieser Live-Übertragung kamen keine echten Katzen zu Schaden.
Say you'll be mine, we'll be divine. My paws were made for you, my claws all see what they can do. This kitty wants her cream. This pussy, oh, she has a little dream. Come, let me play. Don't run away. I'll have my way with you, and when I'm done, you'll say I slay. I'm coming
Give
for
us the
you
subs?
tonight.
What?
I'm ready. Shut the door, turn out the light. Stop running for a minute. We can finally find infinity. Together we can win all this whole affair. So come on, turn around. You're so lost, but you confound me with your endless run around. It's more than I can bear. You run, but in the end I think you like this little game of hide and seek. But when I find you, you won't even know your name. You run, but you don't mean it. You're afraid I'll be too good. In all the love you've had, you never had it like you should.
Who's hating? They're not hating. I think this is pretty cool. Who hating?
Say you'll be mine. We'll be divine. My claws were made for you. My claws all see what they can do. This kitty wants her cream. This pussy, oh, she has a little dream. Come
What the
run
hell?
away. Come let me play. I have my way with you, and when I'm done, you'll say I stay.
Why is there a woman on screen singing about pussy?
I'm ready to shut the door, turn on the lights.
No
Lie
comment.
down upon my table, don't get up, you won't be able. Deep tissue is not the issue, it's the needles I adore. Acupuncture at its best, you'll be defunct, you need a rest. An addict, I assure you, you'll be back for more. You run, but in your heart, you know it's destiny, I'll win. You're slowing down, you're losing steam, I'll notify your last. Can you run, but I run faster, and there's nothing you can do. 'Cause everywhere you turn up, you know who.
That pussy slave? Wait, what? Wait, what? Whatever
Give it
floats
up
your
for these
boat.
guys. Amazing. All right, well, that was so fun. And here's also some breaking news. Eugenics is coming to PS5, Switch 2,
Oh, cool.
and Xbox Series X and S on September 8th. Stick around for more of O&L. Right now, here's the launch trailer for Aliens Fireteam Elite 2.
Whoa.
Shit, we got Xenos!
Oops.
I once promised I would tell you everything about your mother. This is that story. She wanted to protect you from all the evils of this world, even if it meant losing herself.
Oh, it's the witch game.
Everything she did, everything she sacrificed, was to spare you from the nightmare we endured. A force emanated from her, like nothing I'd seen before.
Yeah, 1666.
Terrifying.
Amsterdam or
My
whatever.
greatest ally, and the start.
They didn't show a lot of
Something far
gameplay last time though. But they showed a little bit. She was doing some combos though. What the fuck? The president. The president is doing what? What the fuck am I looking at? Okay, that was random. I mean, music sounds good. Just that was random as shit. What is she wearing? What am I looking at? Oh, that's cool. Oh shit. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? This is like the most random Yakuza side quest I've ever fucking. This is like a side mission on Yakuza fucking. Like what? It's cool. I got Majima's side mission of all time. Yeah, looks like a Yakuza side quest. This truck simulator.
Welcome to the biggest gaming playground in the world, where 500,000 people come together to play, connect, and celebrate across Cologne. 1,600 exhibitors. The biggest names in the gaming industry, bringing countless games for you to explore and dominate. Get set for Gamescom's unique indie area, where you are in control of the most creative and unique projects from more than 400 indie studios. And if that's not enough, don't miss Gamescom's awesome indie show. Our show produced by IGN featuring the hottest new titles from the indie universe. Or become the hero yourself and step into the Gamescom cosplay contest, bringing cosplayers and fans together from around the globe for an unforgettable community experience. Can't make it to Gamescom in person? Visit our website, gamescom.global, and experience all program highlights via our content hub, Gamescom Now. The experts at IGN are gearing up to bring you full days of live streams straight to Twitch and YouTube. Oh, hey, Epi. Crashing the party? Jump into Gamescom Epics on our website and claim your loot. Next up, Gamescom Cares. Our initiative for a safer, more sustainable, and inclusive Gamescom. Speaking of inclusive, the Gamescom City Festival is taking over the city with live music for free and all kinds of fun. Gamescom is more than a single event, it's a global family. With Gamescom Dev, Gamescom LAN, Gamescom Asia, and Gamescom Latam, we're unlocking dynamic experiences and connecting gamers worldwide. Welcome to the heart of gaming. Welcome to Gamescom.
Next up, we've got the release date trailer for Stage Tour. Built by veterans of the original rhythm music game era, this game has 90 songs, including artists like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Radiohead, Olivia Rodrigo, the Rolling Stones, and Muse. Here's a brand new look at Stage Tour.
Guitar Hero? Cool.
Let's go! I always wanted to be a rock star. Maybe someday. Next year, Sega's classic game, Crazy Taxi, is coming back with an all-new
AI Taxi, let's go.
And right now, we have the multiplayer reveal.
Oh, man. Are you seeing the GTA 6 thing? Oh, is that today? On Netflix? Thursday?
The Xenia continue to wage war against the human race. Our only hope, the Order of the Turok. Mystical guardians armed with enhanced abilities. The war has moved to the Lost Lands, a site of ancient ruins and creeping danger. The Xenia yearns to unlock the secrets of these savage worlds to unleash the means of humanity's destruction. They must be stopped by warriors who will not flinch in the face of the Xenia menace. You are such a warrior, relentless, fearless. You will give no quarter to your enemy. No stopping, no surrender, no limit to your abilities.
Bro, they know what I want to see, bro. I'm just getting blue balled, per usual, bro. Gate kept. I'm getting gate kept, bro. It's actually so sad.
That's pretty awesome, huh?
It's
And
actually
right
so
now,
sad, bro.
we are excited to share with you the debut game from Octopus Panic, a 7-person independent studio founded by veterans of the Halo and Battlefield franchises. It's a new co-op action game that launches later this year. Let's check it out.
What the fuck?
All right, Grab Hounds, welcome to the other side of the galaxy. Welcome to your first shift.
All right, let's get this done.
Remember, every resource gets us one step closer to home.
Wow. Wow.
New research options just opened up. Some might even help. And watch out for the wildlife.
Yeah, I wonder if we're gonna get an update on the fucking Chicken Souls game.
Try not to die.
We're gonna get an update on that here today. Y'all know what I'm talking about? The Chicken Souls game.
Uh-oh. Later.
Okay, this is becoming a problem.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me.
Am I playing it? I don't even know, man. That game out of fucking nowhere, bro. That game came out of nowhere.
Woof! Did I just bark at ONL? Yes, I did. That looks awesome! And this next title we're about to see comes from a studio known for creating world-class city building and management games. With this one, they're bringing that expertise and passion into an entirely new setting, inviting players to build a city where everything just clicks.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Oh, that's what that means. Skylines. It's gotta be Skylines. Yeah, it is. No way they end with Final Fantasy, right? Come on, bro. Don't end with something that's expected. They wouldn't do me like that, right?
Forward into the next shift and a brand new line of work. Into the places no one else touches. And into the future of dirty work done right.
Dirty work done right.
This is the job. The first and only crew built to punch into the hottest zones, take on the toughest jobs, and stay longer when the work isn't done. Built with the firepower to clean up the alien mess, and the grit to see the job through to the end of the shift. They'll keep the lights on for one more day. The toughest crew on the contract. The last ones to leave the work site. The only crew that gets paid for doing what others won't. This is Exterminate. Punch in, clean up, get paid. In the arena, glory is witnessed. But in the world, it is taken.
They don't look bad. I don't think it's my type of game though. I have a few of these type of games I can play. I don't know. And this coming from someone that didn't enjoy Hades.
What I'm owed.
Like I bought Hades, I played like an hour or two of it, and I was like,
There was some big news for ONL. Path of Exile 2 1.0 is coming on December 11th from Grinding Gear Games. And next, we have some exciting news. The reveal of a classic remake. It's a turn-based strategy game that was first released in 1999. Now beautifully reborn in 3D and faithfully modernized. It is time to journey back to Erathia. Oh my gosh. Command mighty heroes, build spectacular towns, and lead fantastic armies into epic tactical battles once again. Ubisoft presents Heroes of Might and Magic 3 Remake.
Arisia's son.
The great king of Erathia is dead. And the enemies of the kingdom are scrambling to feed on its remains.
Erathia must not fall to its enemies! Let us repay them 1,000-fold! For Erathia!
So many of these. Oh, there's so many of these. I don't know. Maybe I'm tripping, but I feel like there's so many of these they've shown.
The realm strains under a gathering storm. Heroes will rise. Kingdoms will fall. Erathia cannot escape its fate.
With that, now let's talk about Gamescom Cares, our platform at Gamescom dedicated to projects that give back. This year, we're putting the following topic in the spotlight: the unique power of the games community to be a force for good and drive real change. Please join me in welcoming a special guest who knows this firsthand, co-owner and business director, Ashley Farkas of Games Done Quick.
That's cool.
Hello,
Ashley.
Ashley.
Is sick.
Welcome to Gamescom ONL. So,
I used to watch a
tell
bunch
us
of
about
these.
Games Done Quick.
Yeah,
Like
thanks, Josh.
SGDQ.
So Games Done Quick is all about playing games as fast as possible for a good cause.
SGDQ.
At every event, we bring together speedrunners from all around the world to showcase incredible
The blindfold
runs
ones
and
are the
raise
fucking
millions for
craziest
charity.
ones, bro.
We are thrilled
Like,
to
the
bring our live
blindfold
event
Zelda
to Europe
speedruns
for
and
the
shit.
first time
Oh my
right
God.
here at Gamescom.
Some of them shits
Every
are insane.
donation and sponsorship from the community
And they're all,
and our
like, doing it
partners
to raise money for
goes
charity.
directly to Gaming for Democracy, an initiative that supports social
Great in Bondi if
engagement and
DMC6 was
democratic
to get
values
announced.
through gaming culture.
That's incredible. And
Oh, they
since
know what we
2010,
want.
Games Done
It's
Quick
been enough
has raised
time.
over
I think we're definitely due for a
$60
DMC6
million
now.
for charity, right?
At least the
Absolutely
trailer or
amazing.
teaser. It's been enough
What
time.
a
Enough
great
time has
example
passed.
of how gaming can give back. Ashley, why do you think it is
'Cause
that
think
the
about
gaming
it,
community
DMC5
has such
came out
a
when?
special power to be a
When
force
was
for good and drive
DMC5?
change?
So I think games create a space
Like 20,
where people show up as their
19,
authentic
18?
selves.
Yeah,
And
2019.
they
I think
connect
enough
with
time has
others who share
passed.
those same passions. That sense
19.
of community and shared purpose is the foundation
Enough time
for
has passed,
everything.
bro.
This empowers the community
Like,
and
playing
helps
around.
players advocate for great projects like
March
supporting
8th,
democratic
2019.
values, healthcare,
It's basically
and global
2018, bro.
humanitarian
Come
aid.
on.
I can't agree with you more, but how can this special power be used even more in the future so that we
Or
feel
like,
empowered
please tell me
to
I don't gotta
speak
wait
up for
till
what's
Game
right?
Awards, bro.
Yeah,
Oh my
we
God,
believe that the
bro.
gaming community should recognize.
I mean, Game Awards is not that
just
far
how
away now,
powerful it
but like,
already
bro,
is.
don't do that.
Organizations like the United Nations already do, and as organizers, it's our responsibility to create
Don't
meaningful
make me wait that
opportunities
far, bro.
through community fundraising, local events, or creator collaborations. We're always looking for new ways to connect gaming with causes that matter, and our goal is turning our passion into change that lasts beyond the games we play.
That's a great point. And of course, I have
Is there
to
new
ask, are there
info
any more
Dark Souls
examples
4?
right here at Gamescom?
There's a lot of games we have no info on right
There
now.
are so many for everyone to
Including some
see
that are
and
dropping
participate
soon,
in
like
this
GTA.
From charity streams like
Oh,
Loot
we
for
got
the
info.
World to life-saving initiatives
Not through legal
and the
means, though.
Gamescom Forest, just to name a few. Gamescom is bringing gaming communities together to create a real-world difference.
You're so right, Ashley. There's also Greenpeace, Life Lolly, Deutsche Stammzellspenderdatei, and Médecins Sans Frontières joining this community to be a force for good. Thank you so much for joining us, Ashley. I hope you have an amazing event right here at Gamescom. And of course, go check out all these great initiatives happening here at Gamescom Cares on our website.
Awesome. Thank you, Shocks and Ashley. Last year at TGA, I was very excited to debut the new title from Uppsala, Sweden-based Neon Giant. From the small team behind The Ascent, No Law is an immersive open-world FPS RPG set in the cyber grunge city of Port Desire. And tonight, it's finally time to give you a new look at the game.
Was this a cyberpunk-looking game, but it wasn't cyberpunk?
You hear about this Gardner guy going after the mayors? The city won't shut up about him.
What have you heard? Nobody sees him go in.
Yeah, this was the cyberpunk, non-cyberpunk game.
Nobody sees him come out.
Good with his hands. Right on his
Wow. He just drop kicked that motherfucker.
Come on, we can handle one freaking garden.
He's a ghost.
Bulldozer.
Damn.
Pacifist.
Tactician.
Artist.
The fuck? These fucking motherfuckers up.
Stories about how you operate, Gardener. Are they all true?
There's a gardener. She got bird legs? What on earth? Bro, stop. That's just a red Yasuo. I think people in Cyberpunk 26 are not scared that someone will take over their body. People are scared. It's just the risk of being in that city. I mean, that city. Cinder City. Whoa.
시공간을 찍고 나타난 미지의 함선이 하늘을 덮자 전 세계가 숨을 멈췄다.
What happened to y'all?
시간을 건너온 세 명의 사도들은 다가올 절망의 미래를 경고했고 그들이 건네준 인류의 희망은
The hell?
거대 기업 아니마 그룹의 탐욕에 의해 변질되고 말았다. 사도의 예언대로 검은 물질과 함께 대항마 뷰에르가 강림했다. 인류의 혈관 속에 잔혹한 시한폭탄이 돌기 시작했고 나도 예외일 순 없었다.
전방 좌우 확보 클리어. 내부 상황 확보. 전전 위협 없음.
우리의 미래에 아직 구원이 남아있을까?
The hell? It's Korean, yeah.
Last year at TGA, we revealed Ontos from Frictional Games in Malmo, Sweden, the spiritual successor to Soma. The game stars the incredible Stellan Skarsgård, and now we've got your first look at gameplay as the protagonist comes across a horrific experiment where a body's consciousness has been transferred to a server of rats. It's one of the many experiments in the game. Narrative puzzles where your moral choices affect the outcomes of the mission, as well as the rest of the narrative.
When I was 5 years old.
What did I just hear, bro?
But somehow, my dad did the impossible.
Oh, man.
Whatever that miracle was. It pushed
Server
him away
of
from
rats?
Crumby, do you hear me?
Word of caution. Crombie's experiments can be active right now. Delicate style.
What?
Please? I need to talk to you. That's it. My savior.
Oh my god, he wasn't joking. What the fuck? It's a fucking server of rats.
There are some notes on the whiteboard to guide you to it.
Bro.
Ah, okay. You said...
I assure you there is no mind. Please proceed. No! No! My body! No!
He was dead ass. Jacksepticeye? Okay, that... okay. What the fuck? What the fuck did I just... what?
What a wild
The last
trailer from
3
Daniel
minutes
Mullins up in
of
Vancouver,
whatever the
Canada,
fuck I just
creator of
watched
the
just threw me
description.
off.
That was Pony Island 2 Panda Circus, described as a voyage through time, myth, divinity, and video games. All right, now it is time for some animal combat. I guess we had a little bit before with that Gravhounds, right? It's a lot of animals tonight. From China-based TI Games comes Zoopunk, a 3D diesel punk action RPG starring a playable, get this, rabbit, rhino, and chipmunk.
Forget about this game.
Tonight we have the first look at Zoopunk's squad-based combat systems, including the potential 4th hero. There's another animal, Shocks.
It's another animal.
With a long blade.
There's even more. That's not all. You'll also want to keep an eye out for the marmot and otter bosses too. Witness the wild world of Zoopunk.
This game is sick.
Ready? Let's go save the world.
No. I'm gonna smash this rotten world into pieces.
You gotta be fucking shit up.
I've got you.
We're about to risk our lives here.
Is this the only way across?
Bratton, toss me there.
Get out of Marmiter Village!
Quit already. You can't even beat the rabbits.
Hands off, Tracy.
No, you can play as each character individually, not just the rabbit.
Enough! It's a no! No! That's enough! It's
What the fuck is this game?
Partisans, stand united! To arms!
Hand over the spark!
No, this trailer wasn't as cool as other trailers. But this trailer is clearly not centered around the main character. Yo, UX, thanks for the prime.
Yes,
The hope of the world?
Who is she? What the fuck? Okay.
Don't mind the faded decor, just ignore the peeling paint. This place was full
This
of
washing simulator?
glamour,
Or what the fuck am I looking at?
might be a little bigger,
Power wash simulator?
no less quaint. Pull back the paper and you'll hear what these walls have to say. Bound by chains of family
Decorating
legacy,
simulator?
wrapped around
Wait, he's a what? He's a ghost hunter by night, washer by what?
ease your burdens, he can be your friend. Just take his red right hand, he'll make you understand. Whisper and poison truth while he assures you there are no ghosts at the grand. There are no ghosts at
The music is fire. Yo, he hit that shit. Can't lie.
That was a new look at There Are No Ghosts at the Grand, a musical horror renovation game from Bristol, England-based
He
Friday.
did indeed kill
Sunday.
that shit.
We have some big reveals still to come, but first the announcement of a new game set in a vibrant world with amazing creatures. This is Roko Kingdom, a new open-world multiplayer creature collecting RPG.
What? That's it? That was a short trailer. 1942? What the fuck? Why they want us to come back here? What the? What on earth? Is that one meme, that one soldier still fighting like it's World War II still?
태어나지도 죽지도 못한 채 얼마나 오래 홀로 떠돌았던가. 아무리 신을 불러도 그들은 끝내 답하지 않았지. 이제 이 윤회를
When are you playing with China for the social credit? What the fuck?
두려워 마라. 너는 이제 내가 되리니.
Mm-hmm. They got the randomest games up here, I swear. Last time we got a Bleach game. Y'all want a Bleach game? Again? What is this game supposed to be? Is it like an arena? Shooter? It's like a free for all. Korea in the finals. Korean finals is crazy. Like or die.
Okay, now I'm happy to welcome to the ONL stage a man who closed out Summer
AI
Game
right
Fest
there,
with
but
an epic reveal. Please join me in welcoming to the stage
Why did they
my
do
good
that?
friend, the Final Fantasy VII Remake
That was
Series
random.
Director, Naoki Hamaguchi.
Finally, some Final Fantasy. Okay, so they're not ending with Final Fantasy. Good. Because they ended the last presentation with Final Fantasy. I want to see something crazy for the final game.
Hello everyone.
Can I see
My
this
name
trailer?
is Naoki Hamaguchi, and I'm the director.
I want to see this. Korea loves AI. Yeah, they're like cool with it there. They love AI. They love that shit.
It's great to be
Like in
back
Korea, AI
at
is normal.
GAMESCOM.
Like that shit is
To give
normalized.
you a green pass or my
Like they
team
have accepted that
is
shit is
working.
just the next
What
shit.
will you see in this brand new exclusive trailer? So-called weapons.
Please no spoilers.
Massive creature, the Cloud, and his team of legendary heroes will face in the final chapter of their epic journey. Final Fantasy VII Revolution will deliver an unforgettable experience in a world without boundaries, and will be available PlayStation 5, Nintendo Switch, Xbox XS, and PC in spring 2027.
All systems, not an exclusive. Thank God. I'm buying it on PC. I'm not playing on PS5 again. That shit barely ran at 60.
Thank you so much.
That
for
shit
all your
barely
support
ran at 60 when I played
and
Rebirth. I'm not doing that shit again. I'm playing on PC. Thank God. Oh shit, here we go.
My fellow citizens, we are assailed on every side by the enormous meteor that looms over our heads,
shit.
and by towering monstrosities termed weapons, like the one.
So are we gonna get an ad for children DLC or like how does that gonna work?
But I know
Look at this. Oh, I guess we have to count this end
every
first.
challenge and show heaven and earth that it is we who reign supreme.
You said weapons are guardians of the planet, right? The planet.
I wonder which system this game plays on. It's gotta be from PC, right?
You call them planetary warriors.
Ruby weapon.
But I call them weapons of mass destruction.
Emerald. Awesome. Shit's our mass destruction. Wait, isn't there classes now? What the fuck? Tifa using magic and shit, not just like materia. Speaking of Tifa, she gonna be in Street Fighter 6 soon, huh? That shit's gonna be crazy. Gonna feel be broken.
Taking down weapons, hunting materia. Way overdue for a day off.
Once we've got a future to fight for, nothing will stop us.
Ready? Aim!
Yeah, notice how Cloud isn't
Finish
there.
this together.
Some scenes Cloud just not there. Damn. That was a short trailer. Not bad. Wait, but they still showed.
Final Fantasy VII
Wow.
Revelation looks truly epic.
Wow.
And we don't have to wait long. The game
Wow.
comes out next spring for all platforms at the same time. All right, we have one last game for you tonight at ONL, an update on a legendary RPG franchise that won Game of the Year
Update.
at the Game Awards way back in 2015.
Oh, fuck. It's Witcher. Damn it. It's Witcher. It's Witcher.
I see a white wolf striving
Witcher
forward
3
towards
DLC.
a solitary tower.
Damn, it's something we already knew was coming. That sucks.
Never chose to be a witcher. Fate chose for me.
Oh, they remastered the game. that. Is this game really that good? Has anyone played it? I mean, I have it. I just never beat it. Because I only got past like the first hour. I thought I met no one that's actually beaten it. What do you think about it? Is it good? I think the only person I know that's playing it, well, I remember a lot was streaming this,
off the path.
and she stopped streaming it.
You're one for life.
She was like, I think she said she was reading chat too much.
That's not also a new beginning.
It's hard to focus on the gameplay when she was reading chat. She kept talking to chat the whole time. She's really like games like this. She said she has to like play it on a TV. Oh, it's a free upgrade. Wait, that's big. It's free. It's free? Wow. It's free. You don't have to pay. That's fucking crazy. That's good. It's free. It's fucking free. Like, that's
didn't
wild.
say I was afraid.
Damn.
Come,
Damn.
of beasts.
Delve into darkness. Slice these motherfuckers up.
And see the truth of Letton's beauty. Garden demands blood, so we'll give it blood.
Over here. We cutting everybody's head off. Damn. Oh, he going for straight head. How many headshots did he get in this trailer? He cut off like at least 30 people's heads in this trailer. He cut off at least 30 heads in this trailer alone.
How about that? Free upgrade, free remaster. All right, well, now joining us to talk all about the Witcher 3 news, please welcome the level design lead,
Straight head.
CD Projekt Red, Miles Toast. All right, Miles, you brought down the house with that news of the free remastered. This is definitely a surprise, and it's coming out in just a month, September 29th, to PC and consoles, including Switch 2 and even Battle.net. Lots of features in that trailer. Tell us which ones stand out the most to you.
Oh, wow. So you can tell that the team definitely poured their hearts into this one, right? And it's a huge privilege for me to stand here and represent them. Thank you for the trust, guys. Secondly,
you heard him. Wait,
right? So
can you repeat that? What
is the visuals?
I ain't seen nothing crazy.
Updated rendering, advanced path tracing, foliage, you name it.
I really did not say anything crazy.
Even after all those years of retirement.
Yep.
And then the other thing, definitely combat. It's more modern, smooth and precise. We updated camera, the targeting system, added new animation.
That's today. What's today?
And what I like a lot, new finishers.
Wow.
And then last one, Witcher 3 is a full-fledged RPG, right? So we completely revamped the ability system to give players more options.
Well, it's a lot of stuff, as you saw in the trailer, only a month away. Let's move on now to Songs of the Past, which is a wild idea in and of itself, a new expansion for an 11-year-old game. What inspired you guys to build this?
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah. So we had this idea for one more story with Geralt for a while, but we couldn't quite figure out how to fit it into our busy schedules, right? Luckily, our friends from Fool's Theory came around, and they hired
so many
a bunch
games
of
I need to
old
play, like
veteran
Xenoblade.
Witcher 3
I want to be a
developers,
Xenoblade.
including my mentor, Peter Jennings. And
so many games I gotta play,
today.
bro.
Wow, well, that's so cool. Now, you mentioned obviously Geralt's back, but he has a new weapon. It looks like in the trailer, sort of looks like a chain that he sort of throws out, right?
Yeah. So this is Geralt's last adventure before we pass the torch on to Ciri, and we wanted to go out with a bang.
Xenoblade
So
is
this
peak.
chain
Yeah,
is
the
a
music
weapon
is fire.
that is new in the game.
I use a
but
lot of
many
music for
people,
videos.
Perhaps hardcore Witcher
Funny
fans
enough, today's
will
video has
realize
Xenoblade
that this
music.
is
I
the
just didn't
weapon we
upload it yet
first
because the thumbnail's
showed
undone.
in the Witcher 1 intro. And we will talk about that and many
Minecraft
more
gamer
things here at
haircut.
Gamescom,
You
so
an
please
asshole.
kindly come by our
Beat the
booth
first game a few weeks ago.
or watch our Red streams that will happen every day.
That's right. I know you
Yeah, I
have
have
an
it on
extended
Switch.
demo that these fans will get to see
Just
at
gotta start
the
it.
booth. Tell us a bit about, everyone wants to know the content of the expansion, the new region, Letten. Who inhabits it? What lurks below the surface?
So Letten is a whole new, unique region that has a unique identity like the other regions in the game. It is filled with quests, you know, new
They're re-releasing
monsters,
Endgame.
adventures, and exploration, just
Oh,
like the
in
things
some
that
theaters
Witcher
they're gonna
fans
replay
love.
Endgame.
But it's an almost uncannily
It's an
idyllic
Iron
place that,
Man
however,
popcorn
has
bucket.
a dark secret lurking just underneath the surface. And
I didn't know they
as
were
it
gonna
is a
re-show
Witcher
Endgame
game,
in theaters
this
again.
kind of secret requires
It's
a
pretty
true
cool.
professional Witcher to solve.
Well, good thing we got one of those. All right. Well, I imagine we can expect all the upgrades
New
we've heard about
scenes.
for the remastered that will roll across.
Whoa, that's pretty crazy.
Songs of the past.
Absolutely,
Huh,
yes.
All
interesting.
right, awesome. Well, I love the idea that you guys are doing this. And one last thing I wanted to ask you about. You have some news for people
New
about the other
scenes, wow.
expansions as well, right?
Yes, so this is super cool. I can say today that tonight, both of our previous expansions, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine, will be free for everyone who owns the base game. And this is a great opportunity for, yeah, right?
Just giving away all the free stuff tonight.
It's the coolest part of the job, I guess. So, and this marks a great opportunity for people who have perhaps only played the base game, right, to jump in with the improvements from the remaster update and get a whole lot of stuff for free before we ship the Songs of the Past sometime next year.
Wow. Well, I got to say, a lot of amazing Witcher news today. Thank you very much, Miles, for joining us, and we'll see you at the booth.
Thank you.
All right, Miles from CDPR. Congratulations. All right, and that is going to do it for ONL 2026, but that is just the start of Gamescom week, so stay tuned for news and updates throughout the weekend. And of course, we will see you again on December 10th, live in Los Angeles for the Game Awards 2026,
this,
where we will celebrate the best of the year, crazy year, and see what's
Oreo
next
chicken
with a
burger.
lot of brand new game announcements and surprises from the world's top game development studios. It's been another great opening night live, and before
Mashed
we go, of course, we're going to
potatoes
bring out
covered in
my
crushed
incredible co-host
Oreos,
tonight,
fried
Shox.
chicken
Come on
fillet.
back out, Shox.
Thank you
Didn't
so
you do such a great job?
Thank you so much, Jeff. Thank you so much for having me once again, and what an amazing show.
Third time's a charm. We're just going to have to keep bringing you back. I hope all you guys have an amazing Gamescom. All right, good night, everybody.
Bye. Thank you so much. Good night.
I'm not trying this shit. No, bro. No, bro. No, bro. I'm not trying that shit. I bet you a lot would love to try that bullshit. Do not show her that shit. Don't. Okay. That wasn't bad, but wasn't necessarily a lot of games I liked in there. Personally, there wasn't a lot I liked in there, but be like that. You only live once. Stop. That was a lot of Hoyoverse games. Damn, bro, they got money. Shit, they have so much money now that they're saying shit. We can just do whatever we want now. We don't gotta do just gacha games no more. That's how much money they got now. Me side ad. What the fuck? Oh, it's the second birthday of Me side. Is Me side that? When did I play Me side? What the fuck? That was 2024. Damn. Holy shit. It was 2024. Damn, time is passing by fast. Okay. What do I do now? I do have a lot of work to do. I should probably end, and I didn't work out yet. So I can either end and come back later, or probably like play a game or two and then end and come back later. I think regardless, I'm gonna come back later. You download RA and play it when you come back? What in the what? What if I don't come back? What if I don't come back? What if I just leave you guys? I'm buying that Octopus game though. Oh my god, bro. You'll come back, you will? What makes you say I'll just? What makes you so sure I'll come back? I can literally just not come back. You have to.